22nd. Yeah, September the 22nd session. Can you believe that? September the 22nd, almost finishing September. So good afternoon, everyone. I think some students joined the class. Consuelo, I see Cristobal, Camila, and I'm not sure if Fernanda is in or out of the class. The idea is to review some sort of versions of Beowulf, considering that it's a poem written in Old English, which is a language that even native speakers have a hard time to understand. Are you? Am I sharing a YouTube video here?
Yes, Professor.
Yes. Let me know if you can listen to it.
Sedan är det svett färsätt. Hedes frådre var, werks undervoknum, werk myndum falla. Och högstara September, overvrondrade Uransol. Gomman björnen. That was
All right, sorry about the last part. Okay, so the idea here is to understand that Old English sounds quite different from modern English, that Old English has the influence of many Danish or Scandinavian tribes, right? Like the Angles, the Saxons, the Jutes, all these Nordic tribes or peoples that traveled and invaded England at some point. And the idea is that we need to listen to this because it's a poem. And always a poem needs to be read aloud to perceive certain elements that are part of it, like, for example, rhythm, for example, consonants or assonance, and specifically the repetition of sounds with which make it, or which have an influence in the tone of the poem. Sometimes the tone of a poem might be sad or showing some disappointment, right? Or sometimes it may be a merry, easy-go-lucky tone. So the point is that always a poem has to be read aloud, or you always have to listen to the poem to understand specific literary elements that are part of it. Now, have you found a version of Beowulf in modern English? So did you read it or did you watch anything? Do you have any background knowledge about Beowulf? Do you have any idea what who Beowulf was? What kind of poem is this? If there's no idea, that's totally fine, because you can ask many questions during the process. All right. Let me see if I can get. Okay. So a little bit of context for Beowulf is that that's the transcription, right, of what we heard in the video. that the poem was sang. Okay, the poem was sang. There were these shops, which is a concept for storytellers, shops where singers, shops where storytellers. They were basically people that traveled around singing the deeds of the heroes, and they were basically the Twitter or the WhatsApp that we have today, right? We find out about news by reading news online or using social media. At that time, shops were the ones that would carry the news to the rest of the people. So the shops would make heroes quite famous. So they were so famous that people would know their names even though they had never seen them before. Okay, so this is quite interesting because it was an oral narrative. Okay, before it was found written. Okay, so this is oral narrative. Some people call it orature instead of literature. Orature. And then the poem takes place before Christ, 500 years, even 700 years. We can see if we consider the oral aspect of the poem. It was written, and there's only one manuscript, as you can see here at the bottom, and almost destroyed and found by this scholar, J.R.R. Tolkien. If you remember, Tolkien is quite famous. Do you know why Tolkien is quite famous? Have you heard his name before? Have you read his name before somewhere? J.R.R. Tolkien?
Yes.
So how do you know he's famous?
If I am not mistaken, he is the author of The Lord of the Rings.
Exactly.
Mm.
In all the saga, right? All the saga. That's right. That's right. So it's interesting to take a moment to reflect that if the poem was a poem that was read aloud, that was sang, right, with an instrument probably, and was recited aloud, sorry, shops had to rely heavily on their memory. And then once the poem is written, it doesn't change a lot because it's, you know, it's difficult to change what's written. Whereas when you are reading some lines aloud, you can change it somehow. You can add, you can make it shorter or longer, depending on what you're doing, or the impact you have to create on the kings and queens in whose courts you are. Immediately, Cristobal. Cristobal, do you have her email address? I don't know if you gave me the... Yes, right. Thank you.
Yes, is the email there?
Yeah, sorry, I wasn't looking at the...
No, don't worry.
Okay, I'm on her right now. Thank you so much, Cristobal. So the point is, once the poem is written, it's written by people that that basically do not share the same culture, and that's something that we need to consider and ponder, because it is said that it was found by monks, and monks are Christians, right, and very religious, right, people that might see things from a different perspective, might see natural phenomena as probably signs of God, and they are going to describe whatever they see, whatever they perceive from their own perspective, the perspective they have gained through their religious studies, right, and their own Christian experience. Now, these monks wrote this poem, right? And somehow they interpreted a poem that described a type of culture that was different from them, from their culture. They described a type of a lifestyle which was more, pagan. Actually pagan because they worshipped different gods. They connected with nature with a different perspective, and they shared different values. That's important to consider, because the society described is a society in which you see that a king protects its people, has warriors, right, that fight for honor, for glory, for, if you have watched series in which Viking life is described, probably you have a very clear, in general, we don't have to trust 100% of what we see on TV, but in general, you have a clear perspective that Viking tribes were pagan. They did not share many of the Christian values that we may or may not share in nowadays society. So that's interesting to remember, because at some point we're going to see that there are pagan values in the poem, and also there are Christian values in the poem. And you may wonder how much of these values or perspective is basically the monk's perspective, right? The Christian perspective added from the people who transcribed this poem. So it was not only an oral poem, but became a written one. I'm sorry. There are some literary devices that are interesting to remember. I'm going to ask Grace Munoz if you are kind enough to read this PDF slide. Grace, are you here?
Yes.
Thank you. Could you read aloud this section, please?
Okay. Literary devices. Allusion, biblical. I don't know how you pronounce that.
Biblical, yes. Mm-hmm.
Germanic oral tradition, Norse myth and legend, historical Anglo-Saxon kings, alliteration, secrets, I don't know, songs, strong song, caning, two-word metaphorical name for something, for example, whale, road, and sea. Scope, Anglo-Saxon composers and storytellers like minstrels or bards. Epic poetry, a long narrative poem written in elevated style which celebrates the deeds of a legendary hero or god.
Thank you so much, Grace. So we're going to consider this an epic poem because it celebrates the deeds. It celebrates what a specific person did, someone who was considered a hero, all right? And so that's why this is going to be considered an epic poem. And there are other poems that celebrate someone's life. For example, a poem read when someone dies, and a poem is read to celebrate the person's deeds while he was alive or she was alive. In this case, this is a poem in which a god or specifically a hero is praised. There are others. Hober wrote several epic poems in which semi-gods, right, are celebrated, or their deeds in general. From the bottom, we continue with shops, right? A shop, that's a, I'm sorry, the pronunciation of this very strange word. A shop is a storyteller, as I said before. A shop is a poet. It's someone who sings this epic poem, okay? And someone who has a very good memory, probably someone who plays an instrument, and someone who can motivate an audience and can learn about all these news and take these pieces of news to other peoples, to other places. So shops' role was quite interesting because they were like sort of the newspapers, right, or internet nowadays. A concept which is also interesting and it's very repetitive in this particular poem is called kenning. Here, kenning is a two-word compound. Okay, like the one here, whale road, which is a way to refer to the sea. There are several two-word compounds that refer to one specific concept, and then the technical name to refer to these is kenning. Okay, kenning is the concept to refer to these concept in which you see two words that make reference to one concept. Okay, there are many kennings. This one refers to the sea, ever present in these Scandinavian societies, because they're surrounded by water, and also for the body. I think there was another one, and for the king, like ring bearer, the one carrying or wearing the ring, the king, right? Alliteration is quite present also here. Charles Strong's song, the repetition of one initial sound, and there's a lot of allusion here to the Bible, to Germanic and Norse tradition, and to Anglo-Saxon kings. Okay, let me see if I can show you this. So there's some names that are going to be part of the story. We're going to see, for example, Heorot. We're going to see. Okay, here's a shop, right? Child. Unferth. Okay, and the point is in showing you this is that words are written in one way, but the pronunciation is almost never close to what we could expect in modern English. Okay, so if you want to see the correct pronunciation, you can Google something like Beowulf pronunciation guide, like this, all right? Beowulf, Geats, Heorot, some names are repeated. Okay. Another interesting concept that is present in this story is the warrior code. Concepts that are part of the warrior code are comitatus, thane, kings, and weregild. Okay. Comitatus is a code of loyalty to the king from the parts of the thanes. The thanes are the warriors that swore loyalty to the king. Okay, and so thanes and the kings have this comitatus, which is quite important if you consider to survive in a society in which you were part of a community, you were part of a tribe, and you have to swear, right, that you're going to be loyal, to be protected by the king, and you're going to fight for your king, and you're going to protect your community. And if you don't follow the rules from this society, you are outcast from this society. And if you're left out, there are very small chances for you to survive. You were expected to be part of a group. So these codes, like the comitatus, strengthen this concept of belonging to a community for the matter of protection and for the matter of honor as well, right? Because if you are part of a group, you do things that are appreciated by this group, you gain in self-esteem, self-confidence, you become I would say celebrated by the community, And then this is something that was quite important for this group, to be recognized because of your courageous behavior, to be acknowledged by the community because you're considered a brave warrior, okay? And to be recognized not only in terms of recognition, right? But also in terms of treasures and gifts from the kings, right? Because the king give gifts to these warriors, or the bravest warriors, right? Another interesting concept is wergild, in which there's a fee paid by the family of a murdered man, because if someone in your family was killed, you would try to find revenge, right? And to avoid this, there was this payment in which the family would receive some, so the justice would not be served, but a sense of healing from the payment would come to the family of the murdered man. At least that's what my perception is. Okay. Some characteristics of these epic poems. It's always about a hero, and the hero in general of noble birth, right? It's always a king's son, or a very recognized member of a society, and the society looks up to this character, okay? And the deeds, or the challenging actions, right, show how brave he is. In general, is epic poems refer to men, and that's something that we need to. We're going to talk about why always men, not women, and how these perspective of men being courageous, men doing the celebrated deeds, is changing nowadays, particularly in some movies that we can see now. I don't know if you have seen some of the new movies made by Disney, in which princes are not just waiting for the prince to rescue them, but also they take an active, independent role. So they are also courageous. Princesses are a princess is also a brave. It can also be someone whose deeds are also celebrated. Okay, but in this specific society, it was always men who would perform deeds that would determine the destiny of communities. If you read the story, or if you're familiar with Beowulf, he travels to another community. He travels to a different country. He travels to save the day, and therefore his deeds are recognized as changing the fate of the whole community. Okay. There are many aspects considered in an epic poem. The first one is about the setting. The setting is always oceans and valleys. Not about just staying in a single house fighting with a ghost, which is in this haunted house. It's about traveling long distances, sometimes accompanied by an army, sometimes on his own, and then because it's the poem is celebrating the hero's deeds, it's always serious. It's not too much irony present, right? It's not about making fun of anyone in the story. So in this journey that Beowulf performs, we see all this courage, because it takes some brave heart to travel to free a territory or a kingdom from a monster, right? Because you never know what you're going to find. A monster can be anything that scares a community, but you never know what you're going to find. So it shows that he is a quite courageous character. And what's good, what's evil, we're going to see, depending on society, these characters are, these themes, what's good and what's evil, even though there's a ever-present element in these themes, sometimes the perspective varies, okay? Okay, in the following slide, we have since Christian is here, I think Christian Ramirez, and we have Christian here, so I remember that you were here. Christian, are you okay about reading this slide, please?
Yes, for sure. Yeah, I hope
Thank
you
you.
can hear me correctly because I with mobile data. Okay. Translation. Allusions to the werewolf is a redeemer who is sent by God to save man from sin. The price of salvation is life itself. Correspondences between Beowulf deaths and the death of
All right, thank you so much, Christian.
no
Thank you very much. Thank you. So, as Christian read, we need to remember, as I mentioned before, which in this poem, in this epic poem, in which we see this celebration of a hero's deeds, how much of the elements, part of the poem, are considered to be part of pagan practices, and which elements are considered to be Christian values. In this way, we can see that there are allusions to the Old Testament in the way that the king is expected to behave. Beowulf was a very brave warrior who became a king, and somehow in this evolution from being a celebrated, courageous warrior and then highly recognized and praised king, he was expected to behave in a different way. And in general, warriors were expected to behave in one way, but kings were expected to display other values. Okay, so I would say that in general, when Beowulf was a warrior, and we see it from the Christian perspective, he was, as you can read here in this line, he was considered to be a redeemer, someone who was sent by God to save the community. Now, from the pagan view, Beowulf was a warrior who went to save this community to gain glory, to gain recognition, to be appreciated, so that his deeds were sung by shops, and to grow in the eyes of the from the pagan perspective, basically, to grow in the eyes of the Scandinavian society. Okay, so that's and also his death is it can be interpreted from the Christian perspective, connected with the death of Christ, because he sacrificed himself in order to save his people, and or humanity in general, I would say. And Beowulf, as a king, sacrifices himself to protect the community from the dragon's attack. Okay, remember that the poem, the epic poem, can be divided basically in three parts. The first part is when Beowulf faces Grendel, right? That first attack. Then the second part is when the second battle he has with Grendel's mother, the second monster. And the last battle is the one he has against the dragon. So that's the last battle that he faces as a king, and in which he dies, right? He sacrifices his life in order to kill the dragon. So, well, from the pagan perspective, he is, as a king, he's expected to protect his people, even if he has to sacrifice his own life, right? So again, facts and events in the story may have a dual interpretation, a pagan/Christian interpretation. Okay, that's important to remember. The values, as I said before, vary from pagan values and Christian values. Okay, and also they vary depending on if you're a king or if you are a warrior, right? And the basic bond between the king and the warrior was the comitatus. The warrior was expected to be loyal, was expected to be brave, was expected to be to seek for a sense of community, and the king was expected to be objective, was expected to be generous, was expected to protect his community, and also to be brave, but in general to look from a higher perspective and to take care of the community from this knowledge. Okay, so in this next slide, we see that there is a conflict somehow from the moment he, from the moment that, I'm sorry, I need to, the cell phone is running out of battery. I need to connect it. Give me a second, please. All right, 3%, almost finished. Okay, so far, at some point, I'm going to ask you to, as a task, to make a list of the Christian values and the pagan values present in this epic, and in which way Beowulf, as a warrior, and Beowulf portray these specific values. Okay, that's a task that at some point I'm going to ask you to perform. All right.
Okay.
Alrighty. So Javiera Diaga, are you here? Javiera, could you read this slide, please? The one that says the character of Beowulf. The character of Beowulf. Javiera, are you here?
Yes.
All right. Could you read it aloud, please, Javiera?
Conflict Christian values and the character of Beowulf. The fights for personal honor, but is committed to service to his own people and humanity. a superhuman who remains recognizable, contrast old, young Beowulf as savior.
Thank you so much, Helga. So I think it doesn't make too much sense, right? But let's address the first one, the first bullet. He fights for personal honor. So if he fights for personal honor, for personal glory, to be recognized as a famous warrior, that doesn't look like, it doesn't sound like quite a Christian value, right? If you fight for your personal honor, so probably that's connected with pagan value. He's committed to service to his own people and humanity. So in some sense, he's seeking for his own glory, right? To be recognized and to go to, I guess, Valhalla in the end, right? He has superhuman characteristics, some superhuman features, but still he's recognized as a man. He's not recognized as a semi-god, as some figures in Greek mythology. He is not as the son of a god. He is superhuman. He is a brave, a strong character. So we can still see humanity in him. There's an old version of Beowulf and a young version, meaning a young version when he is a warrior, right? And an old version when he is a king. And that's something that we need to probably draw a table and see if the same values that he had when he was a young warrior are the ones that he shares at the end of his life, before dying, of course. So Beowulf is seen as a savior, right? But as a savior from the Christian point of view or from the pagan point of view? Is he doing these deeds? Is he saving a community because he wants to have personal honor for the glory of it, or from a Christian perspective? That's something that you have to decide, okay? Some of the themes covered in this poem are connected with good and evil. And this is something that we need to consider, because Grendel's mother and the dragon, the three battles that Beowulf faces, are, or could be said that they are representations, right? Or they are symbols of the instability or the complex historical setting or background lived in the island. When I say the island, I mean the British island, right? If you remember a little bit of British history, they were invaded several times by different groups with different cultures. And these invaders took not only the language, but also the religion, sometimes the type of justice served in the community. Therefore, these different groups of people, different communities that invaded the island at some point, Scandinavian groups, the Roman, the Norsemen, right, or so the point is that these several invasions produced a system in which people was sort of unable to tell when the next group was going to come. Therefore, some people interpreted, some authors interpret the different monsters in this epic poem as the uncertainty of invasion. A monster that comes at night and kills people, a monster that comes to revenge the death of another monster, as in the case of Grendel's mother, and then dragon, they are, by some authors, right, they are considered some sort of representations of this group of people that came to invade the island and caused many changes in the society. So they had to be prepared in order to face all these challenges. Okay? Therefore, their fate was sort of always at risk, and they depended on how courageous they were to face these uncertainties. And the character of a savior has been present in many, many different tales. If you remember King Arthur, if you have familiar with this legend, you may have seen a tale or a movie, but in general, in many communities, wait for these heroes to lead them to become independent, for example, or to lead them so they can face the consequences of war or the consequences of an invasion. So there's always this character that can take a leading role and can take and can lead the fate of a society, of a whole society. In this case was Beowulf. In other case has been King Arthur. In other stories, there's always the role of one heroic character that is going to save the day. It's going to lead a whole community to a positive end. Okay, and in this sense, another theme, it has to do with identity. When we consider identity as a society, is the who might be considered, for example, Chilean, who might be considered. There was a very interesting poem written. Sorry, it was a very interesting, literary work written by Crevecoeur, a French writer who went as an immigrant to the United States and asked himself this question: what is an American? Because the American society at that time, and then it continued on and on and on until contemporary days, it was made of different groups of people coming from different countries. So a society that is made up of groups that come from European countries, from Latin American countries, from African countries. And then you see this mixed of nationalities in one single country. That was the question that Crevecoeur asked himself. What is an American? Is it a hybrid mix of nationalities that come together in one place? But what are the specific features or elements part of every single American? Now we can ask ourselves the same question. Who is or who could be considered a Chilean? If we consider a long wave or several waves of immigration, we're going to have people from Venezuela who's going to stay here, Colombia who's going to stay here, Haitians who are going to stay here, and our society is going to change somehow. And it's not only a matter of skin color; it's a matter of values. That's basically my question. Who is going to be considered a Chilean in the end? Okay, and in this case, the identity of Britain, right? The identity of this these different British tribes, along which they were the Celtics, which are the most famous ones. Who were they because of these different waves of immigration as well? Because they received different cultural elements from Scandinavian tribes, not only language, but also other, and also from the Roman Empire, because the Roman legions reached the British Isle, and they took religion, they took language, they took architecture, they took the roads, they took many cultural influences with them, and then also we have this. I don't know if I could I could share with you this. Yeah, I'm going to try to share with you. But there was another invasion, a period which is called the Norman Conquest. And the Norman Conquest came from a group of Vikings that came from an area of France. And they came with this French language with a law system, with a very hierarchical structure for society, in which in the upper section of society it was the French or the Norsemen, right, men from the north, and at the bottom were the English peasants. And we can see this interesting difference between French noblemen and English-speaking lower class. Right? And we see that they refer to the same thing with different words. We see that they have a judicial system that that it's applied in the whole country. And so who are they if they have influence from so many different cultures? Okay, so that's something that it's explored as a part of a theme in this poem. Sorry, I feel like I've been talking. I don't want to bore you. I think it's important to have a break and with a more active methodology, so you can take part of this. Okay, so the idea is that we're going to have a break now. Let's meet at 12. Okay, and after the break,
Professor?
Yes, ma'am?
Can I ask you something before the break?
Yes, Maria Ignacia.
Yes. I have to do we have to send you an email with the contemporary tales that we want to do, if we want to do, because my group wants to do The Wife of Bath, and we don't know how to tell you. I think I already did, but do I send you an email?
Yes, you have to send me an email, or the other way around. Sorry, the other thing we could do is that you can give me the name right now, and I can write it here. I mean, either it's fine.
I can.
There are going to be two presentations, right?
Yes.
Go on.
Okay. My group is Jocelyn Yanez and Camila Quesada. And we would like to present The Wife of Bath. Like in the first book report. Or we have to give you the two books reports at once. And Maria Ignacia. Bravo.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Yes.
Okay. if you are seeing the syllabus at the end, I wrote your group's names, right? So I got you here. It's totally up to you if you want to give now the names for the 2 book reports or only one.
I will give you for now only the wife of Bass, but I will send you an email as soon as possible with the other choice.
Perfect. Excellent.
Okay.
Excellent.
Thank you,
The same
Professor.
for all right. No, you're welcome. The same for all of you. If you have already the name for the first presentation for the first book report, go ahead. You can give me the name through an email, or you can give me the name after the break. Okay. So we're going to take a break now. It's 11:52 according to my. No, it's 11:49 according to my cell phone. So 12:02. We meet again for some class discussion about Beowulf. All right. So I'll see you in about 10 minutes. See you around. Stay tuned. I'm going to stop recording.